The following is a special KIRO 7 Seafair presentation.
The last time 4 different boats won the first 4 races of an unlimited hydroplane season, a man named Hanauer was rewriting records, a bright pink boat was turning heads, and a mister had invaded a world dominated by females. Since then, a bright red machine has totally dominated the sport, winning 70 races since 1988. How dominating, you ask? No other team racing in Seattle today has won more than once. But a new era has emerged in hydroplane racing, and a new leader has surfaced to rescue a sport some say may be sinking. Hydroprop and Gary Garbrecht are determined to return the Thunderboats to glory.
I think we're on the right track. I really feel like I'm ahead of schedule.
The result, competition, parity, and in 4 races this year, 4 different winners. Who will become number 5? Stay tuned. The story is about to unfold. It has been more than 100 years since man first raced a boat with anything more than wind and brawn behind him. Oh, how we've come such a long way since then. Today's turbine-powered hydroplanes will reach straightaway speeds of more than 200 miles an hour. They are rocket ships on water, barely skimming the surface, constantly straining to find that extra burst of speed to defeat their foe. Today, man and machine will again test their skills. The venue, a watery amphitheater known as one of the most exciting and most dangerous race courses anywhere. Seattle's Lake Washington has a history for ruining a driver's day.
Elam on the outside looks like it's going to pull him through. Oh, we had a flip.
The first curve, the first turn of the first heat of the first boat race of the century here in Seattle, and we have a boat airborne and over. Only once in the past 10 years has Seattle been accident-free. The number of flips, crashes, and blowovers speak for themselves. The drivers know the odds. They're ready for battle.
I'm sure we try harder at home. We'd like to think we don't. We'd like to think we try hard everywhere we go, but, you know, we certainly throw everything we have at it in the truck at this race.
This is probably the most competitive race because for most of the teams, this is home. I mean, you want to win. Your family's here. You got 51 years of tradition. It is the granddaddy. It's the Daytona 500. It's the Indianapolis 500. It's our 500.
Now it's time for racing. It's a simple game. First across the finish line wins. But the path to victory is never straight and always bumpy. The checkered flag lies ahead as we race for the 2001 General Motors Cup at Seafair.
The General Motors Cup at Seafair pre-race special is brought to you by Chevy Trucks, the most dependable, long-lasting trucks on the road. Chevy Trucks, like a rock. And by Southwest Airlines, the official airlines of Seafair.
This is the boat to beat today, or is it? It's the boat they've been chasing for years. The big red machine, Dave Villwock, at the controls of the Budweiser. Fastest qualifier over the last 2 days here on the lake. He really wants to win this in his hometown. But getting a jump on everyone this morning, Terry Troxell in the Zenetics 2. The first boat out on the water here on Lake Washington. And a lovely morning it is on the lake. We're live at Stan Sayers Pits. The hydroplanes are shined up and ready to go. The log boom is packed with the crowd and the fans. They're settling in for what will be, without a doubt, an outstanding day of racing here in Seattle. Something is going to happen today. I just have that feeling, and many of us do. Hi again, everybody. Steve Rabel with you here. Welcome to KIRO 7's live continuing coverage of the General Motors Cup at Seafair. You can hear the air show has already begun. The crowd is taking its place along the shores and in the stands. We have a big day coming up. And joining me this year for the first time in a number of years is Chip Hanauer. Happy to have him here. Chip, this has got to be fun for you, maybe a little bittersweet being upstairs instead of down in the boat?
No, it's really not. I've had enough of boat racing, and I'm more than happy to be here.
Talk a little bit about some of the things we're going to see today. Certainly, we could see a repeat winner for the first time this season, or we could see the 5th winner in 5 races this year.
Right. You know, there's some boats also that have not won that are really capable of it. So Gary Garbrecht has definitely brought parity.
And what about the Bud team? Bernie Little is not used to being middle of the pack. They raced to qualify tops this time. What's that like for Bernie?
It's tough, but, you know, really it's been driver error that's been keeping him out of the winner's circle, not necessarily the fuel.
Well, we've got other boats to talk about as well. The Elam, a very strong boat. Terry Troxell, of course, the winner in Tri-Cities. And Michael Hansen won the Gold Cup this year. So we've had a lot of great drivers, a lot of great action, and probably most importantly, a lot of deck-to-deck boat racing. We look for more of that today. And we've got every aspect of the racing covered for you. We've got a great team of pit reporters. Let's hear from them now.
I'm Bill Rocky in the east end of the pits. Two drivers have come out of retirement. Scotty Pierce is driving the Trin West. Steve David's in the Oberto. Also over here, Mitch Evans in the Vacationville.com. And, of course, the top qualifier, Dave Villwalk in the Budweiser. Tony?
Thanks, Bill. I think I've got the most exciting space out here. I'm on the point today. I got the two green boats, the Zenetics 2. Terry Troxell, the winner just last week in the Tri-Cities. Greg Hopp and the Zenetics, definitely a contender today. What about Mike Hansen in the Skyway Park Bowl? That is another contender. I believe I've got the winner out here on the point. The Lumar window film also with me out here. It's going to be an exciting day on the point. Greg?
Thanks, Tony. Greg England down here on the west side of the pits, where down here we've got the Weber brothers, both Mike and Mark, getting ready to race. But also down on the end is a Miss Elam Plus with Nate Brown, a new boat, a fast boat, should be a top contender today. Mike?
Thanks, Greg. I'm Mike Fitzsimmons out at the start-finish line. We've got some interesting racing rules to deal with this afternoon. And, of course, there's always that get-out-of-jail-free card called the Commissioner's Option. There are going to be some interesting formatics today as well. It should make for a very, very interesting day of racing. Back to you, Steve and Chip.
Mike, thanks very much. We look forward to it. You know, when we look back, we think of Chip Hanauer beginning his racing career with another man who is an institution in the sport of racing, Bill Munsey. Let's take you back to 1976, talk about Chip.
A young lad by the name of Chip Hanauer was introduced as Tad Dean's driver in the Seattle Seafair, driving the aged Barney Armstrong's machine. The 18-year-old Hanauer showed a rare skill at the starting line that immediately impressed fans. And he predicted that one day this young driver could be one of the good ones. High tribute for a rookie whose boat was overtaken each time in the first turn, though he hit the line with perfection.
He did hit the line with perfection for a lot of years. A great career. What do you do for the competitive juices that flow in you today, Chip?
Well, now I'm racing go-karts, and it's kind of fun because I'm back to doing it just for the love of it.
And you're down here talking to drivers, and we'll get some of your insights about what they all have to say a little bit later as we move on here, heading toward the General Motors Cup at Seafair, which gets underway in, well, less than an hour now, actually. In fact, let's give you the schedule right now. Show you what we have coming up for you this morning here on KIRO 7 at 11:05. Heat 1A gets rolling, 1B at 11:25. Then the Navy Blue Angels will join us for their spectacular air show at 12:05. Let's get back to racing with Heat 2 at a little after 1, and then Heat 2B at 1:35. Heat 3 kicks off at 2:25. 3A goes off at 2:45. Then at 5 after 3. For every person who has ever loved hydroplane racing in and around this area, the vintage boats, the Pemco Classic, they'll be out on the water again, and we look forward to that. That's about 3:05. 3:30, the provisional, and then finally, the General Motors Cup at Seafair final heat, scheduled to get underway at about 4:10 this afternoon. Of course, that is if there are no other problems out on the lake, and as we know, and as you saw in our opening piece, sometimes it only takes the green flag to drop, and suddenly there is action out on the course and cause things to come to a stop. So we'll have all that for you. Sitting at home there in front of your television, you have probably the best seat in the house, although the excitement down here along the lake and in the pits is terrific. But there's another place where you can get a wonderful view of what's going on Seafair Sunday, and that's out on the log boom. Our Kevin McCarty is standing by there for us. Kevin?
Steve, let's show you a little bit of that seat today. We're on the Dorothy E2 out here on the boom, right out in the middle of the boom right now. You can see we can come right down to the splash rail, be at water level to watch all the action. Look at all the boats out here on a beautiful morning out on Lake Washington. The sun has been just right. The weather's been just right. The temperature's starting to heat up, so it's going to be a really nice day out here. Folks really look forward to the races after they've had a little breakfast on the boat. Some of them nursing a little bit of a headache this morning, perhaps, but that's the way it goes. It's a big party out at Seafair. It's always a big party out on the log boom. We're going to bring you a lot of highlights from out here, talk to some of the folks, tell you what's going on today. So stay tuned because it's going to be a nice day out on the boom. We'll bring it all to you. Steve and Chip?
Kevin, thanks. And as you know, Kevin, we've had some action get very, very close to the log boom in the recent past. So you'll stand by and keep an eye on that for us as well. Now, what can those fans out on the log boom expect from here in the pits, from the drivers, the boats, the owners? Let's begin checking out all the happenings. First to the Budweiser camp. Here's Bill Rocky.
Thanks, Steve, with Dave Vilwalk. And Dave, there's been a lot of talk about the fuel restrictions and holding you down, but it's still Seattle, and you still really want to win here.
Yeah, we're going to try as hard as we can. For all the Bud fans out there, believe me, we're going to try our hardest. We don't know, what's going to happen, but we're going to try really, really hard.
You went out this morning. What's it like out there?
The water's good. Nate's still faster, so we'll just do the best we can. Hopefully we can get in and out of the first turn clean. If we can, we might be able to win that first heat. And then from there, we don't know what's going to happen.
I was noticing you had one eye on Nate when he was out there. You've been studying that boat. It's very similar to yours, and it's running fast.
Yeah, of course. It should be, we set the course record here at 163, and I know that thing will run that fast if they get it running. So we're looking for it to run really high speeds, and hopefully we can just hang on to the end of it anyway.
All right, Dave, good luck today. Have a safe race. Steve, let's go back up to you.
Bill, thanks. I remember Dave Vilwalk speaking last year, talking very similarly about, well, we'll just kind of have to see what happens. Everybody's running fast. He kind of lie in the grass and the weeds all day long, and then came up and bit everybody in the final and won the General Motors Cup just 1 year ago. A couple of other folks down in the pits now with Tony Ventrella, at least one driver who would like to see the Bud's predominance end here today. That's Terry Troxel and the Zenetics too. Tony?
Well, Steve, green, of course, is my favorite color. I'm not sure it's exactly that shade of green on the Zenetics and Zenetics 2, but Terry Troxel made that color favorite last week in Tri-Cities when he won there. Congratulations on that win last week. 2 in a row, you think, or what?
Oh, yeah, definitely 2 in a row.
Why not? Now, you guys have, you and Greg are pretty much a team out there today. Are the boats fairly similar? Do you like yours better on the straightaways or on the turns, or how's it work, Terry?
Well, Greg's boat is really a little faster in the straightaways, and mine turns better, and I'd much rather drive mine than his, if you know what I mean. Especially here in Seattle, first lane.
Absolutely. Now, what about the water? You were talking about the log boom. Sometimes in that first heat, of course, you're in the second heat today, can make the water rough early, but doesn't look too bad now.
No, it was actually, when we went on Tesla, it was perfect. Looks like all the guys got their women up early and got on log boom early because there's no movement out there.
Is that politically correct, Terry?
Probably not. Probably not. But they do understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely. All right, well, listen, if you should get into the final, of course, you got it's wide open for lanes. Is that a relief for you? Is it better not to be assigned to a lane in that final?
Well, personally, I'd rather fight for the lane than be it assigned to me. Although last week it kind of fell in my lap, so it was a good thing. You're just going to see a lot of boat parts right before the start, I think, and there's going to be people climbing all over each other, so it's going to be a road race.
Terry, you seem pretty calm, and I know you just generally stay calm. In fact, I've heard you've occasionally taken a nap before your heat. Is that correct?
Yeah, I went to sleep before the final heat over Pasco, and my crew chief, Tim, got just really worried about me, thought I was dying in the cockpit. He kept waking me up. I said, don't do that.
Hey, maybe it worked last week. Maybe it'll work again. Terry, thank you very much. Good luck out there. And let's toss it back up to Steve.
All right, Tony, and having seen you fall asleep a number of times on the set doing the news, I understand how that can happen. Guys get relaxed and, well, when you're doing business. Now, you can't count out the Elam Plus. Nate Brown is the driver. It's a very fast boat. Greg England is with Nate now.
Right, guys, we're wide awake down here in the Miss Elam Plus camp. And yeah, we talked about Dave Vilwalk, his comments just a moment ago, kind of putting the attention on you. You're probably not surprised by that.
Oh, I mean, Dave's a good racer. That crew down there is awesome. And, they're holding something back, too. I mean, they're not going to pull any wool over our eyes. We're doing okay, but the Elstrom Snap-on boats, we got it all. I mean, a great team, great boat, and with any luck, I can get a good start and do okay.
How's your health? An appendectomy 3 weeks ago. You're going to be rattling around inside there. How you feeling?
Well, really great, actually. I mean, Dr. Moorhead and the surgical staff at Overlake Hospital just did me great. And I told Doc, I said, hey, Doc, I got a race. He goes, you got a what? I said, I got a race. He goes, you got to be kidding. but he did a great job, and I'm all healed up. I'm doing great. You want to see the scar?
No, that's all right. Okay, that's all right. Maybe if we need a little filler later. I think I've seen them on the internet, those pictures, anyhow. Working with a brand new boat here, which is a huge plus for you, but you're still working on that fuel thing a little bit.
Yeah, we're fast, but a couple times we've had a fuel flow problems, and we've had some, gearbox problems. We've had some N2 violations, and brand new boat. We're still working the bugs out, So once we get those bugs worked out with any luck in the final heat, we're going to have them all worked out. So it'll be great.
One final thing, you're back home. racing for a local racer in Sven. How special would it be for you to get your first win out here?
Greg, let me tell you, I mean, it would mean more than anything, you know, to win for the Elstrom family, for the team, for Snap-on, for myself, you know. And speaking of Snap-on, Greg, I've got
here we go.
I've got the really cool, really fast checkered board.
Now that's nice.
Snap-on racing hat.
I like that.
For yourself.
Look at that. I got
really
the checkers.
Awesome, you know, so
I got the checkers. He's got the flames.
I'm on fire, guys.
We've got it all covered.
I'm on fire.
No one has more fun than this guy. We love to watch you race.
And
Good luck today.
I know why they have you with me.
Why is that?
Because you're about my height.
That's right.
That's all right.
People can't tell. See, we're really
Okay.
6 feet
Okay,
tall.
there you go.
All right, Steve, we'll send it back to you. We'll hear from the Miss Elam Plus plenty today.
Greg, thanks. It is amazing to me, Chip, that guys are as relaxed as they are. I've known you for 20 years. You were a little more tense before the races. We couldn't exactly find you in a situation like this.
You know, I'm amazed that guys like Nate can be like that, because I was so intense. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I'd hid out in the truck, from you especially. But I really believed in that. I believe that you have to be really focused. That's not to say that it doesn't work for Nate, but I certainly couldn't have done that.
Well, we heard Tony refer to it, and let's explain it now. Speaking of being focused, the drivers really are going to have to, as far as the finals are concerned, when that final heat rolls around, they will throw everything out the window. It goes back to the old start of finding your own lane. Explain that briefly, and what's it going to mean, especially for guys who haven't done it all year.
Well, you know, a lot of it's credit to the fans here, because Gary Garbrick told me personally he wants them to have to fight for lanes, and this is the place to do it, because the fans in Seattle understand that jockeying. Some of the places they don't. So what it means in the final only, the guys could be old-fashioned boat racing where you got to earn your lane. Nobody's going to give you one, and that's going to lead to some pushing and shoving.
That means at the start, the clock has to hit 0.
Right.
We'll have the clock in the corner of the screen. We'll show you that. And they all have to kind of move around. They'll run through the infield. They'll almost run over each other sometimes.
Two things they have to do. They have to get the lane that they want and hit the clock right. But to get the lane you want, you got to get in there early, which means you're not going to hit the clock right. So it's tough.
It'll be fun to follow. It's going to be a change for these drivers, but they've done it before. Let's see if they are ready to do it again today. We do have so much more to tell you about, much more to show you as we're just underway here. Your live continuing coverage on KIRO 7 of Seafair 2001. We have Lake Washington covered from every angle, and up next we're going to take a tour of the lake and show you all the great viewpoints from our cameras that you're going to see today. Also, winning in Seattle, of course, is a milestone for local drivers, but winning the Gold Cup, the Super Bowl of the race season for hydroplane racing, is a dream come true. A little bit later, we'll show you the incredible odds overcome by this year's Gold Cup winner to win that trophy. Stay with us. Our coverage of the 2001 General Motors Cup at Seafair is just getting started. Well, you're looking in the distance at Interstate 90 and the log boom in the foreground and all the worries about bad weather today, and we still might have a touch of it before it's all over, but in and around Seattle and certainly here on Lake Washington at Stan Sayers Pits, it is a lovely sunny day, some high clouds. It's going to be about 75 degrees, and it should be a great day for racing, of course, if the wind doesn't pick up too much. And that's always one of the problems around here. Chip, we can talk about fuel restrictions. We can talk about a lot of things as it relates to the racing out here, but weather always plays a big role in this race as well.
Weather always plays a role in races, but Seattle is different because the log boom plays a role in racing. Normally the waves are there because of wind coming from one direction. It's consistent, you know, on the boat where the wind's coming from. All of a sudden a bunch of boats on that log boom start moving. These wakes are all over the place, and there's no symmetry to them. They go every which way, so it throws your rhythm completely off.
Well, we were concerned about it being a little too cold or whatever, but it's a nice sunny day out there, and you're going to see what a spectacular sight Seafair really is if you've never watched a broadcast before. And we're going to show it to you from so many cameras perched all around the course. So let's take you on a little ride around our course. Now, is this the north turn camera here? This is where we're going to begin. We'll show you the north turn. That's up closest to Interstate 90. Then from there, we will go from the barge camera looking back at the pits. This is our KIRO tower that you see there with the big KIRO 7 banner on it. Chip and I high over the pits. We can see everything, hear everything. So don't do anything at home you wouldn't want us to notice. That's from the barge that's out near the center of the course over by the log boom. Then we go to our south turn camera. And that's, oh, this is the start finish. I'm sorry. The pit tower. That's where Mike Fitzsimmons is located. So he can see the start finish of the race. He can watch the boats coming out of that north turn, and he has a great view from there as he will be calling the race. Now let's go to the south turn. There are the boats already lined up, and there will be so many more boats after the Blue Angels perform, because they allow them to all move in from down by Seward Park and over from the I-90 area. They will all be moving into position along the log boom. Then the start finish and the 47th and Bradford camera. This is high up in the neighborhood. Wave to us if you can see us out there being, there you go, draped in plastic as well, just in case it's going to rain, but we expect that that's going to hold off. And then from there, we'll take you down into the pits. We will give you every angle of our pit coverage as our intrepid cameramen and technicians and producers, and of course our reporters, Bill and Tony and Greg, will be down there all morning long getting you the stories from right along the water. And finally, we will have cameras inside the boats, exclusive now to KIRO 7's coverage of the 2001 GM Cup at Seafair. We're going to have a couple of cameras inside the boats, the Trend West boat piloted by Scotty Pierce, and the Skyway Park Bowl and Casino with Mike Hansen at the controls. So that's just a little bit of an idea to give you what's going on, how we're going to bring you all the pictures today. Let's bring Mike Fitzsimmons back in as well, who's out at the start finish along with Chip, and let's talk about what these folks are going to see through all these great camera angles, gentlemen. The stories of the day, the fuel restrictions, the fact that competition is up, the fact that now it depends on the drivers, and being a former driver, Chip, let's start with you.
Well, I think the Budweiser team has really thrown up a bit of a smokescreen about this fuel restrictor, because they haven't won races because Dave's made mistakes at the starting line. He jumped the gun in one race. He spun the boat before the start in another race, and he was late to the race or the start line last week. But here it's going to be all starting, so they're going to have nothing to hide behind. They're going to have to go for it here.
Mike, if this in fact does depend on drivers, who do you think has the advantage out here today?
Well, I'll tell you, we saw some interesting stuff last weekend over in Tri-Cities when the Zenetics team teamed up against the Miss Budweiser. Hadn't seen that since Shanathan Cantrell here on Lake Washington back in the 50s. And that was very, very interesting, and it made for some suspenseful racing. The other issue is that this is a fluid format that we have. The inverse choices, for example, in the second heat, where the guys who finish with the lowest amount of points get to choose the best lanes, and then inverting again based on points for the third heat, and then scrambling for the lanes in the final heat as the water changes, and we're expecting some weather to change a little bit, some more overcast later in the day, some possible wind. This is going to make for a very, very suspenseful afternoon. I think that we may very well crown a fifth separate winner today.
Should make for some fun for all the viewers and for all of us as well. So don't go away. Long day ahead right here from the shores of Lake Washington. Be right back.
Coming up later this morning, Subway invites you to join us as we announce the winner of a brand new Sea-Doo boat. That's ahead today following the Blue Angels Air Show. Subway. Eat fresh.
Well, as we know, on race day, there can always be things happen. First thing in the morning as you're trying to get that boat ready to run. Let's go down to Greg England in the pits. He's got the Miss M-Corps team. Greg?
Yeah, that's right. Already some trouble with the Miss M-Corps, and we'll get to that right now. With us is Kim Gregory, the owner of this team, and banged up a little bit this morning early on right here.
Yeah, it's a problem we've been chasing all year. It's this is a 15-year-old boat, and the sponson's had some repairs to it, and it's still moving a little bit. This winter, we're going to put a new one on it, but this will get us through the race.
So it's something you can fix pretty quickly?
No problem. No problem.
So this is Mike's boat, Mike Weber. You got Mark Weber driving for you, too, the Miss Diamond Lils and the Miss M-Corps. Kind of special having two brothers race for you all year long.
Yeah, it relieves some pressure. I used to have a lot of problem with driver jealousy, and I don't do that anymore. I just tell them to go out to the parking lot and figure it out.
Right. Let them handle it. You know, I know Mark has had a good year, hasn't won yet, but he's second in the points total. Had some trouble at Seafair in the past, including a flip last year. I heard him say winning today would even the score and wipe the slate clean.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of competition out here. I don't think we've seen this kind of competition in unlimited hydroplane racing in years, not since I've been in it anyway. So the first rule of today is to get the boat in the main event, and then we'll see what happens, because it's going to be a free-for-all in the main event.
With two boats going for your USA racing team, is that something you can use to your advantage? Can they work together?
Yeah, they can work together. It depends upon the circumstances. Fred Leland's team's better at doing that than we are. We've had some problems trying to get both of them teamed up together this year because we've been fighting some bugs in the old boat. We basically spent all of our wintertime efforts fixing the U-10 boat, or the boat that George drove last year, putting a new cockpit in and so on and so on. So we kind of let a little bit go on this one. We're fixing it now, though.
All right, we'd love to see one of them get into the final, at least one of them, Kim Gregory of USA Racing with the Miss MCOR and Miss Diamond Lil. Steve, back to you.
Greg, we can't begin racing until we have the opening ceremonies, and those are just ahead. Stay tuned. You're watching the General Motors Cup at Seafair here on KIRO 7.
This portion of the General Motors Cup at Seafair pre-race special is brought to you by IHOP. Anytime is a good time for IHOP.
Well, as we said, you can't go racing until you have the opening ceremonies, and with those, the voice of Seafair here in the pits, Mr. Mark Allen.
Fans and air show fans, and welcome to race day and the opening ceremonies of the General Motors Cup at Seafair. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the first unlimited hydroplane race on Lake Washington. In 1950, Stan Sayers and Slow-Mo 4 shocked the boat racing world and captured the Gold Cup in Detroit. The next year, Slow-Mo 5 proved that it wasn't a fluke here on Lake Washington and started Seattle on the road to being a major league city. Over the years, this Lake Washington racecourse has stretched from the Mount Baker pits to Seward Park, and a couple of generations of kids have pulled little wooden hydros behind their bikes. All day long today, from the Stan Sayers pits and the Ted Jones racecourse, we honor the golden legacy they left, creating the greatest hydro racing city in the world. In the next few minutes, we honor our country and those who put their lives on the line every day to protect our freedoms. Just off of the point of the pits, you'll see the Chief Seattle fireboat ready to salute Seafair 2001. And in a moment or two, you'll see an EP-3 plane from Whidbey Island Naval Air Station featuring their solo flyby as a way of honoring the men and women of the EP-3 crew held hostage in China. Now a tradition of many years, first displayed at Seafair Hydro races a decade ago, coming in from north of the Lake Washington floating bridge, our Chinook helicopter brings Old Glory for a parade lap around the Seafair racecourse. Please rise to honor America with the playing of our national anthem.
Spectacular sights of the GM Cup at Seafair, and that is the flyby of the Chinook helicopter with the colors flying by, and of course the fireboat and our national anthem. Great way to get started. We couldn't be here, however, if it wasn't for some wonderful sponsorship. And again this year, General Motors has stepped up, taken it upon itself to bring you the hydroplane racing from the shores of Lake Washington. Dwight Logie is here representing GM, and this is something that you spend a lot of time working on because you're sort of the Seafair coordinator for GM, aren't you, Dwight?
Well, that's right, Steve. This is our third straight year as being title sponsor of Seafair. It's a big event. As a matter of fact, of all the General Motors events in the country, this single weekend event is the largest. So we're very proud to be a sponsor here. We do it for the fans. We do it for our dealers. As a matter of fact, they're involved in it financially with us. So we appreciate the opportunity.
What's fun is if you're watching at home, one of the things you don't get to see, obviously, you see General Motors emblazoned on just about everything that has to do with Seafair and the boat races. But what you don't see is what's happening at the park just adjacent to Stan Sayers Pits, where General Motors has graciously brought in a number of its vehicles, and you've got quite a lineup out there.
Yes, we do. Well, we've got all of our divisions. You know, we got Chevrolet, Pontiac, GMC, Oldsmobile, Cadillac, and Buick. They're all represented here, and all of those dealers are represented as well. You know, and we've got things going on at the dealerships in conjunction with Seafair. So it's kind of a joint effort on our part, and it's an excellent way and an excellent venue for us to show the products. And in fact, you know, the demographics of the people that attend Seafair fit us to a T. So we're just very appreciative of the opportunity, Steve.
Finally, Dwight, it's a good deal of business, but it's also a great deal of community building too. This is a neighborhood festival, is what Seafair is. It's for the entire community, and that must make it fun for you and all of the dealers who are here.
Oh yes. Well, it was at the urging of the dealers to participate in this. And we know it's the largest single event in the Northwest, and when we had the opportunity, we grabbed it, and we're looking forward to even more association here with Seafair.
Dwight Logie, we appreciate you for GM's help, all the dealers in town. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Enjoy the day of racing.
It's a beautiful day.
So far it is, and we hope it's going to stay that way. I hope we didn't just jinx it. Dwight Logie with General Motors, thanks very much. You know, we've talked about now the boats. We've talked about cars and vehicles on the ground. And another big part of our Seafair celebration here at the GM Cup is what happens overhead, the air show, specifically the Blue Angels. Everybody comes out to see the Blues, and our Susan Hutchison will be along in just a moment to preview the big air show as the Seafair GM Cup rolls on. You know, everyone here that is a local racer, and there are many of them from this area, really want to win this Seattle race because they have friends and family here. But if you had to win one race during the season, it would be the Gold Cup. The tradition of that race and that trophy really means something special. And it truly means something special for the gentleman who won it this year. His first Gold Cup ever. And the odds that he had to overcome to win that are just incredible. Here's the story of Mike Hansen. They're the most recognized symbols of victory in all of sports. The Super Bowl's Lombardi Trophy, the NBA Championship Trophy, and of course the Stanley Cup. Roll all these into one and add the America's Cup too, and you've got Unlimited Hydroplane's Gold Cup, the oldest award in motorsports. So, when Mike Hansen and the Jones Racing Team boat won this year's Cup in Detroit, his childhood dream came true.
I always wanted to do this. I mean, I remember running around as a kindergartner or first grade in the playground, sounding like the Miss Budweiser running around the playground. You know, I wanted to race hydroplanes. And for that to come true was just unbelievable, especially with all the odds against us.
Those long odds for Hansen started the week before in Madison, Indiana. After being the fastest qualifier, disaster in the very first heat. A wreck tore gaping holes in both sides of the boat. He nearly sank. And
all on the first lap. So, you know, our day is done in Madison. Here we wanted to win Madison. And we're also looking at the fact that 5 days from now, we're supposed to be in Detroit qualifying with a boat that's essentially tore up, you know, 2,000 miles from home, not enough materials to try to fix it. It's gut check time.
So Hansen gathered his mostly volunteer crew that Sunday night on the shores of the Ohio.
We can either take this thing home now, give up on trying to win the Gold Cup, get ready for Tri-Cities, or we work 24 hours a day for the next 5 days and take the thing to Detroit.
And that's exactly what they did. But not in a fancy garage, in a friend's barn in the Indiana countryside. Cows and horses giving way to fiberglass and spray paint. But when he put the boat on the Detroit River, he was ready to race. Hansen not only handled his patched-up race boat, he tamed the often treacherous Detroit River. holding off all comers in the final to win his first Gold Cup and the first career unlimited race for owner Lori Jones.
I've never seen so many grown-ups crying and sobbing and congratulating everybody. I mean, everybody was just very emotional.
There we go. But none more so than Mike Hansen, who turned a group of volunteers into a championship team and in the process fulfilled a lifelong dream. And now that his name is on the Gold Cup,
it means everything. I mean, we'll have our name on that Gold Cup for all the history, for all the boat racing history. And there's some great people up there, Tom Deeth, Bill Munsey, Dean Chenoweth, my heroes from my childhood. My name's alongside them. That means everything to me.
and that, my friends, is a live picture of the Gold Cup. It is in the pits here today along the shores of Lake Washington, and it is at the location of this year's winners. With Mike Hansen and the boat owner, Lori Jones, here's Tony Ventrella.
Lori, the Gold Cup is yours for another year. By the way, what do you keep that in your living room? Where does that stay?
Well, actually, it's been on the kitchen counter for right now, and we've brought it to the pits every day.
Yeah, you be careful not to spill anything on that. Jeez, I mean.
Yeah, we didn't eat breakfast on it this morning.
That's good to know. What a proud moment that must have been for you and for Mike and for everybody on the team.
Yeah, my husband and I are elated. I mean, this is the highest award in all of our powerboat racing that we've ever done in any category of racing. The APBA Gold Cup is it. There's nothing else higher that you can achieve in this sport.
You guys have a solid shot with the Skyway Park Bowl and Casino. There's no doubt about that today. Having won just a couple of weeks ago and then scrambling to get back into the Tri-Cities. How is the boat just overall operating going into today?
We're prepared. They say we're ready to go. The boat ran pretty well yesterday, especially in our second flight that we did. The water laid down a little bit, but the boat can run in rough water. It gets a little wild, but we can keep it there.
Lori, tell me something. You just told me that a few seconds ago you were just talking to Bernie over there. You were not congratulating, but just saying good luck to Bernie over there. Now, I know there's a little friction going on. He's not the happiest guy in the world, and yet all the owners seem to get along, or at least that's what you're telling me.
Absolutely. We really are a big family. With Bernie in particular, he understands what we need to do to have more competition in the sport and have some different winners. He probably tells his race team he expects them to win. I expect that from Bernie, but we've become pretty close this year. He's been a real asset to our team in particular to get us up to our level that we're at.
And the fact that there is some parity now this year, of course, is good for Bernie. It's good for everybody. And today, it could be very good for you in that final. But I guess one step at a time. Let's do that first heat first.
Let's get the first heat out of the way, and then we'll go from there because every heat's different.
Thank you, Lori. We're going to catch up with Mike Hansen a bit later on as the Skyway Park Bowl and Casino, no doubt, a major contender today. I'm very excited, Steve, because I got 3 or 4 contenders on the point this year, so I have a chance to be with a winner, which is always fun. You're with a winner with Chip today.
I am indeed. Chip has won so many races, it's tough to keep track of them. Tony, thank you, and thanks to Lori as well. You ever won the Gold Cup, by the way?
Steve, I am so happy you asked that question.
I'm certain he would be.
I won 11 Gold Cups. You have a pen there. You might write that down. 11 Gold Cups.
How many was that in a row?
You're probably asking yourself, how many in a row? I'm glad you asked that.
Actually.
That would be 7 in a row. You're writing it down. 7 in a row, and that was 11. For those of you at home, that was 11 and 7 in a row.
Chip is actually very modest about that. We talked yesterday, but you don't, sometimes it's tough to remember, you win as many races as you win, but Gold Cups really are something special, aren't they?
Yeah, most of my career I really am a very poor historian of, but the Gold Cup, I remember every one of those and what it meant. And it was great to see Mike's reaction to winning the Gold Cup because you could tell he really understands what it means, and it made me really happy to see how much he treasured it.
In the story that you saw I did a few moments ago, it is really not hyperbole to say that it is all of those other big trophies rolled into one. I mean, as far as motorsports racing, this is the oldest, and it is one of the biggest, isn't it?
Well, even more than motorsport, this trophy is the second oldest trophy in North America, and I'll give you $1 if you can tell me what the first oldest trophy is.
It's not the Stanley Cup?
No, it's the Grey Cup in Canada.
Oh.
And this is the second oldest trophy. It was built by Tiffany's. I can't tell you what year, but like 1901, 1902.
So the tradition of the sport is carried with every name that's put on that further down the line.
Yeah, whenever you win the Gold Cup, you bring it home, you have all the crew around, and everybody spends the whole night just kind of looking at all the names and reminiscing. It's great.
So it never got old after 14 Gold Cups that you won?
That was 15 Gold Cups.
I'm sorry.
For you at home, that was 15 Gold Cups.
Never got old?
Never got old. Actually, I never had it in my house. No,
Really?
I've won it 22 times, and I have, honest to gosh, I've never had the thing in my house.
Well, it's a great tradition, and it's a tradition that is expanding right before our eyes. And so we congratulate Chip and Mike Hansen for winning it this year. We've got more. We'll actually check on those statistics on the Gold Cup for you, but we're also going to show you some racing. The General Motors Cup at Seafair. We're just getting started. You're looking at live pictures from the shores of Lake Washington. The boats, as you can see, are on the crane, and a couple of them are going to be put in the water here. The Budweiser for one, and that is the, that's the Elam I can't see because there's a glare on my screen because, well, the sun is in and out here today. We talked about just a couple of moments ago. Bill Rocky is one of our intrepid pit reporters. He's got an idea for you of what it's like inside one of those very fast boats. Bill?
Thanks, Steve. First of all, I want to tell Chip that hydro historian Craig Schaefer told me about that Grey Cup answer. I would have got that right. I just want him to know that. Anyway, here on the shore, it's a lot different watching the hydros than if you're in one of these things. We put a camera in the Trend West here, and Scotty Pierce took us for a ride.
Well, at this point right here, we're just about at the start line heading down the chute. And what you're trying to do is keep the boat in the water. There's always a lot of wind coming down the front chute. And so I'm using my left foot. You can see the wing over on the right side of the picture. That's the canard wing. And unfortunately for us, it was broken at this point. Normally it would have been up a little higher. We just entered the corner flat out as fast as we can go. There goes your apex. Pulling about 3.5, 4 Gs. You can see lights coming on the dash. That's telling me where the fuel is in the boat. We straighten the boat out, and we're accelerating very, very hard. Now, you can run much faster down the back chute at this point. The boat has a good ride. You're still using the canard quite a bit, but you can see it's floating in neutral if you look again in the right corner of the picture. We're going to set up for the corner. You set up very, very easily. You don't yank the boat in the corner. You let the boat have its head. You run it, let it run through the corner. There's always going to be some swells coming off the corner. You're going to bounce through those. You straighten the boat out, and you head back down the chute again. Again, this is probably the most treacherous part of the racetrack. It's this where we're coming into up to the first turn, which will be coming up hopefully shortly. If we qualified faster, it would have been shorter than this.
Steve, those shots are great. I love looking at that. It really gives you an idea of what it's like to be out there. I don't know if I want to do it, but I like watching it. Let's go back up to you.
All right, Bill, thanks very much. You're looking at the tail section now of an EP-3 electronic surveillance plane from Whidbey Island, the kind that was shot down in China. Just had a magnificent flyover here along the shores of Lake Washington. Again, just part of the air show that will continue throughout the afternoon. But we're going to talk boat racing, and we're going to talk a lot about it because we're just a few minutes away from the start. Stand by. More when we come back.
The General Motors Cup at Seafair, brought to you by Chevrolet. We'll be there. And by Southwest Airlines, the official airlines of Seafair.
And we are just about ready to go racing. The first heat of the 2001 General Motors Cup at Seafair is just minutes away. So one final time before the boats hit the water. Let's head down to the pits, check in with our teams down there. Here's Greg England.
All right, we're down here, Miss M-Corps right here. Mike Weber getting ready to go. Mark Weber over here in the Diamond Lils. We've got brother versus brother in Heat 1A. It doesn't get any more personal than that. We'll check out how they do. Over to you, Tony.
Thanks, Greg. We'll be covering the Elam Plus in this first heat with Nate Brown. He, of course, talked to Greg earlier. Nate, the affable driver, but, you know, he's serious now. He's in the cockpit. They're ready to go. None of the boats on the point are in this first heat, but the Elam Plus is, and he is a definite contender. Bill Rocky?
Tony, the Budweiser is getting ready to go out for their first race of the day. Interesting, I asked Dave if he wanted it to be smooth or rough out there. He said the rougher, the better for the Miss Budweiser, so I think he's looking for a little choppy water. Let's go to the start-finish line, Mike Fitzsimmons.
And Dave just might get his wish, Bill, because we've had a wind shift, and it's now playing a few tricks on the front straightaway. Look for a little bit of rough water in turn number 1. That could be a factor, and I think the wind and the weather could be a factor all day. Back to you, Steve and Chip.
Mike, thanks very much. Chip, why would the Budweiser want the choppier the better out there? You've driven that boat.
Right. They probably set the boat up for rough water. By doing that, or how they do that, is they take air out of the boat. Instead of making the boat light and free, they're going to pin it down and just basically blast through the waves. There's two ways of handling it. You can either make the boat really light and try and dance over the top, or you just bury the front end and plow through it. I think they've got the thing screwed down real tight.
As we look at the drivers in the cockpits now getting ready for this initial race, Heat 1A, what's going through your mind, their minds?
What's going through my mind? I'm a little concerned about the Miss Elam. The boat is brand new last week, and it was very light. And now, as Mike said, with this wind changing direction, they're going to be running right into the wind as they go into the first corner. A little concerned about the Elam. The thing that's going to be interesting to watch here is the Elam being on the outside of the Budweiser. If they can beat the Budweiser from the outside, they really sent the message. On the other hand, I don't know that Dave will show everything. You said earlier on that he may lay in the weeds, and he may let him do that, so we'll see.
He did it a year ago. The old boy Alberto is all set to go out. We are set to go racing. We couldn't have picked a better day, and we're glad you're along with us. The General Motors Cup at Seafair is about to begin. Stand by. You're watching it on KIRO 7.